Okay, so we are doing chapters 13 and 14. And the first question is number 3 for chapter 13.
Hey, what's up, y'all? That's me. Uh, so the question was, two studies, that one, have demonstrated a new observational technique for assessing disruptive behavior in young children. The technique involves observing disruptive behaviors that are triggered while the children play a competitive game, a card game, and then in quotations, snap, that is rigged to ensure that they experience a losing streak. The situation is contrived to produce frustration. The kids cannot win, which often leads to a disruptive outburst. So the first one was A, briefly explaining the difference between naturalistic observation and contrived observation. Is the SNAP technique an example of naturalistic or contrived observation? And what is a major advantage of contrived observation? So overall, I just said the difference between naturalistic observation and contrived observation is that there's no control in natural observation. So obviously things are just really natural, and then contrived is like more of a created environment. So I was saying like naturalistic observation takes time, it cannot be manipulated, and is less structured, and the results and conclusions can be like generalized compared to other studies. On the other hand, contrived observation is the opposite, meaning that the major advantage is that it is manipulated, that causes a structure, and it doesn't require too much time because of its structured design. In this study, the snap game is designed in order for the participants to be in a losing streak. That means that it's a created environment which applies to contrived observation. So the B was honestly pretty easy. It was just list 5 specific behaviors that you would consider to be examples of disruptive behavior for children in the snap game. So I said disruptive behavior can be depressed because they keep losing, and then fighting with other participants, and then damaging property. Once you lose, you throw a little fit and start damaging stuff. Frustration, and then I think I'm gonna put losing their temper, but I put losing their cool. I'm gonna change that to temper.
Yeah,
And
I
that
think
was
I would have said the same about the contrived versus naturalistic. It's basically like the contrived is like a created environment, and naturalistic is nothing is like interfere. You're just like observing people in their natural environment. So
mhm,
I agree. Yeah,
for
good
sure.
job, Noah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Now for mine, it basically was asking, gave me a couple like studies, and we had to determine whether they were survey research design or not. And for the first one, I put that the research study I had compares the drinking behavior habits of college students from US and from Canada. So the researchers are essentially attempting to understand the participants' behavior. And in the definition of like the survey one, it does say like you use data to understand like behaviors, attitudes, or characteristics. And I put, and if they differ depending on the country of origin, the researchers are not exerting influence on students whether to drink or not. And I put, due to researchers comparing the two student sample sizes and asking about their alcohol consumption, it is evident that this is an example of a survey research design, given that the researchers administered surveys to quantify the data and then determine the attitudes / behaviors of the students participants having to do with alcohol consumption. And then for the next one, I was kind of like struggling with this one only because um in the book it says something like something about like the sample size that it has to be like large and stuff. So I was kind of like confused because it says it surveyed 1,800 students from middle school students from 57 schools. So I'm like, that's kind of a small sample. So I put, the researchers from this study sent out to examine how or whether or not students who are exposed to substance abuse are affected and in which ways. It is mentioned that only around 1,807 students are interviewed, while there are 57 schools. This suggests that only a small sample of the middle school students were selected for the survey, and this means this research did not use a survey research design. This study would use this design if all students from schools were surveyed, not just a small population of students, which is using the sampling technique. But I don't know what you guys thought on this one, but I kind of want to go back on it, just because I'm not sure with that one.
So this is for B, right? The
Yeah,
results showed that a greater risk of adolescent substance abuse was associated with increasing numbers of parents and friends who are substance abusers.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I think, yeah, it maybe might be like a correlation because it's saying associated. And then they're kind of looking at the relationship between the risk of adolescent abuse and the increasing number of parents and friends. But I do see why it's like kind of a survey design because it's so many. Well, 1,807. That's not, is that a big number for survey? I don't remember.
Let me see.
I was under the impression that it is, but I could be wrong. I'm not, don't take my 2 cents with a grain of salt.
I don't know. I'm confused on this. Why do you think it is?
The number that, why do you think the number is big?
No, why do you think that it is a survey one?
Oh, I was saying it might be a correlation, a correlation design. But you're also saying it's probably not survey, right?
I'm like on the fence with it. I wasn't sure, so I was like, oh, I'll ask them.
The way Sora kind of like, I'm a little confused by it too, not gonna lie. But the way Sora kind of explained why it's a correlation, that kind of made sense to me. But again, I'm a little confused.
That makes sense to me because the survey design definition was research in which investigators administer a survey to a sample or to entire population of people to describe attitudes, opinions, behaviors, or characteristics of the population. But it is describing a relationship. So I don't know. Maybe it does make sense if it's a correlational one and it's not a survey one. So I'll continue that one and I'll look at the differences between the correlational one and the survey definition.
Yeah, because the survey would say, if it was a survey, it would just look at adolescent substance abuse and not really look at what is causing it or what is associated with it. So it'd be just way more, it's like more descriptive. And so my guess is that it's correlation, but because it says associated with increasing numbers of parents. Because why would they get the numbers for the parents and the friends who are substance abusers? That would be, you know what I mean? They wouldn't need those numbers if it was just a survey design.
That's true. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Of course. And then, okay, so for chapter 14, they're basically asking for a graph showing if data, there was a therapy applied to one person with two different behaviors. And so that one treatment is supposed to address the two behaviors, but it's still one participant. And so I drew this thing and I'll just share my screen really fast. it's basically it's kind of going off the example in the book, but this is the first behavior, the top one, and then the second behavior. And the baseline is here. And after the treatment for both behaviors, there was a dramatic change. And so that's the graph. So for both behaviors. And then it's asking why you can't really show a cause and effect relationship and then I put, it's difficult to prove the causality because if the treatment of the first behavior, it might affect the second behavior. And then also if both of the behaviors change, you can say that, oh, there was another reason why both of the behaviors changed. You can't like rule out, I mean, you can't like narrow it down to just the treatment. Like there's all these other reasons that could have changed the behavior. And yeah, that's basically the two reasons why. And that's it for
That
my,
looked good to me. I actually like the graph a lot.
oh, thank
was-
you.
That's a
Yeah.
good image, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I can draw it, or I can't do it on like, I don't know how to make graphs on the computer, so I just drew it.
Mhm. No, it looks nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I ran into the same problem, Sora. So I might take your idea there and copy and paste. Do like the graph as well.
Yeah, and then you can email it to me and then I'll attach it to, because I was just gonna attach this to the Dropbox. So just you can, if you want to draw it and then email it to me.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's my turn, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Where was I? Okay, so for my question, it starts off with, suppose the complex theory procedure contains one component that has absolutely no effect on behavior. The first question or the first part is explain how dismantling design could be used to demonstrate that the component has no effect. So I kind of started off with a definition of what it means to dismantle the design. So the designs have multiple components. Components either get added or subtracted during each phase. A combined series of everything, which would involve a combined series of every phase, I should say, which would involve addition of / subtraction of each component one at a time is called a dismantling. So that's the definition. So by dismantling the design, we get to know about each component of the treatment, and it helps include only those components in the final treatment, which are ultimately more effective. So to conclude it all, the component that has no effect is removed. So that's why, that's how dismantling design could be used to demonstrate that the component has no effect because ultimately it is removed. So again, as we were talking about just a minute ago, I ran into well, before I move on, does anybody have any comments on part one or suggestions?
Nah, it's looking good so far.
Pretty straightforward. So cool. So for part two, a draw graph showing data that demonstrates that the component has no effect. So again, I didn't know how to draw a graph, and I was actually gonna like copy and paste like an image, like a Google image of like a reversal graph, that might graph there. But I was a little unsure about like copyright and stuff like that. So as we mentioned, I'm gonna draw it out and send a screenshot or whatever. So I kind of just went with what I think was the appropriate graph was a reversal graph. Because despite of the implementation of the treatment, there is no change in the behavior of the variable. Therefore, this treatment of the complex therapy has no effect on the variable. A lot of typos today. It can be concluded that when there is a complex therapy, a dismantling design assists in elimination of the component that has no effect on the subject's behavior or reaction. So once again, it's that reversal graph that shows that the component that has no effect is removed. There's no effect on the subject's behavior or reaction. Any questions there or anything you all feedback?
No, looks good to me.
And yeah, I'll draw out that graph real quick and like I said, give you a screenshot. And that's it. That's it for me.
Cool. I think that's it then for this discussion. Thank you, everyone.